In this touching interview, Pharrell Williams is brought to tears because he had a glimpse of something that so many of us long for: significance. He created a song that has made an impact all the way around the world. Now, it's completely undecided as to whether this song will help curb a future global recession or maybe stave off a future global war. But for a few moments, tens of millions of people have lost themselves in joy and fancy. Some of you have as well, right? You see, Pharrell cried with Oprah because he got a glimpse of significance. It's what we all long for in one way or another, right? 7 billion people walking around on this planet wishing that they were more than just one of 7 billion. We want to make a difference. We want to be greater than what we are just on our own. We want significance and to have made a difference in the lives of others. As people, we have a fascination with this, don't we? You know, I'll confess, there's times where I do this little thing. I think about my future funeral. It's kind of a morbid narcissism. Some of you have done this, right? I'm not the only one, am I? It's where I construct this fantasy of my future funeral, and I like to scan the crowd to see how many people showed up. Or even more specifically, who actually came. I know, productive use of my time. Now, I have friends from all over the country that I've met over the years, of places that I've lived and people that I've met along the way. And maybe this is my own insecurity speaking, but there's been times where I've wondered if some of them would actually come to my funeral or whether they just send my family a card. There's something for us that longs for significance, to mean something to others. And at the end of our lives, we want to have made a difference. That's legacy. Now, sometimes I think we get this legacy thing all mixed up. We strive for significance. We strive to make a name for ourselves because we don't want to be forgotten. But that's not how it works. I think specifically about my family here. I've got photos of family, and these were the people who did it for me. I'm actually here today literally because of them. Think of my grandparents, Kenneth and Jaquetta Olmsted. I called them Mama and Papa. And I have amazing memories of them. They were huge in my life as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult. And I remember a story in particular that Mama, one time she took me on a road trip from my home in Valdosta, Georgia to Montgomery, Alabama. And it should have been a 4-hour trip, but it took 6. And the reason why it took 6 is because she stopped at every playground on the way that I could play at. Somewhere close to the Alabama line, I said, Mama, stop, I'm tired. Let's get this trip over with. They were good people. I think of my other grandparents from my dad's side, Boyd and Burtis Conley. I call them Oma and Opa. They're from the hills of Kentucky, a place known for coal mining, moonshine, and some possible inbreeding. Unfortunately for me, I'm sorry about that. I remember my great grandmother. I called her Great Mama. And she was actually alive till I was about 20 years old. And she was different. I only knew her in the nursing home. We'd go and visit her every year, multiple times of the year. And so I always knew her in a wheelchair, in a bed, a whispery voice. And actually, I have to confess, this week when I was preparing for this message, I called my mom because I'd forgotten her first name. I think she was a little taken back that I had forgotten. How could I forget my great-grandmother's name? But honestly, I always called her Great Mama. And on the door of her nursing home, it was E. Simmons. So she reminded me that her name was Emma Simmons. Now, these people were amazing people. Now, here's the deal. My kids never met my grandparents, my great-grandparents. They know their grandparents well, but they've never met their great-grandparents. And even though they lived long and full lives, their lives will be reduced to probably just a couple factoids that my kids will remember. That Papa fought in World War II as an avid golfer. That Mama was the epitome of a refined Southern woman. That Opa owned a gas station in Kentucky, and Oma was an incredible cook, had legendary chicken and dumplings. It's doubtful that my kids' will even know their names. Now, I could probably be more intentional about passing on the heritage of my kids, but in reality, the kids will only remember the significance, and to them, they're just stories, not actually people remembered. These men and women were amazing people who contributed much to life, but soon they'll be forgotten. That leads us to a very depressing realization that we too will be forgotten. Within a generation or two, no one will remember your name. The entirety of your life will be summed up in just a couple sentences. Now, don't let that throw you off too much. You're in good company. Many great people who have lived greater lives than ours, have already entered into obscurity. I mean, think of the world leaders who led entire nations, and people have already forgotten who they are. I mean, think of within our own nation, the leaders, the presidents who we hardly know anything about, like Martin Van Buren, James Polk, Millard Fillmore, Rutherford Hayes, Chester Arthur. I mean, think about it for a second. We know more about an orange lasagna-loving cartoon cat than we do our 20th president. What was the dog's name? Odie, of course we know. But did you know our 20th president, James A. Garfield, was one of only 4 presidents who was assassinated? Some of you know that, but I'd be willing to bet that most of you didn't. Now, I'm not dismissing the greatness of these men who led one of the most powerful nations in the world for a short time span, and their contributions were great, but they too are living on the edge of obscurity. And unless you win the notoriety lottery, like Steve Jobs and Mother Teresa, you too are going to be forgotten. And maybe having this realization is a good thing. It'll help us to stop striving for something that just isn't going to happen, a significance that actually isn't attainable. And instead, we can focus our energy into something that can happen, leaving a legacy that lasts. You see, making a name for ourselves never lasts. It's a fleeting endeavor. But a legacy that lasts is a life that is changed. You know this is true. I know this is true. I look back in my life and I think of the people who got me to where I am today. My parents, my grandparents, family, friends, coaches. I remember even specifically a man named Randy Stephen. He was my children's pastor. I called him Mr. Randy. He was a spiritual leader in my life in a time that I needed him most. And he taught me how to be a man who loved Jesus and a man who loved my family. You see, these people who helped me get to where I am today, they will never be famous. But to me, they'll always be famous. These past presidents, they'll never be significant in my life, but these men and women, they'll always be significant to me. And here's the thing about legacy. Wealth is fleeting. Notoriety lasts only for an instant. But when your legacy is composed of the people and the lives changed and invested in by you, then your significance is passed on from generation to generation to generation. Those people who helped me get to where I am today, I am their legacy. My kids, they may never know their names, but they will experience the truth that those people helped me discover. My children and my children's children, they are their legacy as well. Several years ago, a movie came out. It was a sci-fi flick that kind of flew right under the radar. It's a Justin Timberlake movie, so depending on your age and your gender, that could either make it or break it for you. I love the movie. It was a great movie. It's called In Time. And the premise of this movie is that time is currency. You see, in this near future, everybody was genetically altered that they would live a normal life until age 25. And then as soon as they hit age 25, they stopped aging. However, everyone had an LED countdown clock under their forearm, and it had a countdown of 1 more year of life. And when they would go to work and they'd earn their living, they weren't paid in money, but they were paid in time added to their clock. And when they had to buy things like food and lodging and other things, they didn't pay with money, but they paid with time from their countdown clock. And there's a whole society based on trying to get by, living day to day, trying to get a little bit more time on this earth. Now, it was a pretty fun movie, and it illustrated several ideas in a pretty exaggerated way, but the parallels for our reality are true today. Let me share with you some of the ideas. The first one is that time is limited. Well, we know that's true. There's never enough time in a day. How many of you wish there's just a couple more hours in my day? Another idea, everything that you do in life is measured in time. And we know that's true as well. We say time is money. I don't have time for that. We make decisions based on the amount of time that we actually have. Everything we do in life is measured in time. Another idea, what you do with your time may be a matter of life and death. Now, in this movie, the decision you make today could affect life and death tomorrow or the next day. It's true in our life as well. It just usually doesn't happen so close. The decisions that you make today and tomorrow may affect a year from now or 10 years from now, but they are decisions of life and death, how you spend your time now. You see, time is the great equalizer. Time puts us all on the same playing field. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your education was, where you were born. We're all given the same amount. I mean, let's look at it. In a given week, we're given 7 days. That's 168 hours every week, 10,080 minutes. Now, when I say it like that, it sounds like a lot. But when you remember today to last Sunday, you're thinking, well, where'd all that time go? Maybe we should look on the bright side. Look at the cup half full. We have 8,760 hours this year. That's a lot. 525,600 minutes. Over 30 million seconds. If time were money, we're millionaires. We're rich. When someone grabs you, say, hey, can I just have a couple seconds? Sure, I've got millions. And let me tell you this. What we do with the 30 plus million seconds every year has everything to do with the legacy that we leave. Everything. But there are lots of things that are going to distract you from the good work of legacy building. Things that sap our time. Let's look at some of those things. In the average week, the average person will spend 406 minutes on their smartphone. That's a low average. We'll spend 119 minutes exercising. For some of us, it's less. Here in Austin alone, 4.3 hours commuting and getting longer. 36.8 hours watching TV. These alone account for a third of our time, a third of our week. And we haven't even talked about work and school. Oh, and sleep. Where does all the time go? It's interesting how little we value time until we realize how little we have left. Right? You see, we can do lots of things. We place a high value on money and possessions, and we can do all kinds of things to get more money and to get more possessions. But at the end of our lives, we'd be willing to pay anything and do anything for a little more time. Time is the currency of legacy. Now, many of you in this room have kids. Now, it probably by default is a talk about legacy. I know exactly how this relates to me and my kids, but I know there's people in this room who don't have kids, and this message is equally significant to you. I want you to hang on just for a second because I'm getting to you in just a minute. But if you have kids, there's no greater legacy than you will leave than that in your kids and in your children's children. Legacy is important. Studies show, all the studies show, that no one has more influence on the life of a child than that of their parents. Even if you have teenagers at home who never listen to you, you have more influence than their friends. You have more influence than the media. Seriously. Now, maybe you have little ones in your house, and some of you are thinking, if I could only get in a time machine and fast forward past the twos, or potty training. Been there, done that, didn't like it, starting again this summer. We can't wait for them to grow up. We can't wait till they're old enough to play catch with them, to go shopping with them. We just can't wait, but we need to slow down. Cherish the moments because legacy building happens at each stage of development. And if we're not careful, we'll miss it. It'll be too late. Now, there was a man who truly understood legacy, probably better than anyone else. His name was Moses. There was this time where Moses had addressed the entire nation of Israel. They were all standing before them, and he was speaking to them actually one last time. To his back was the Jordan River, and on the other side of the Jordan River was a land, the promised land that God had promised to the people. And the people were itching to get into the land, and Moses had one last pep talk with his people. It's kind of like the ultimate locker room talk. And Moses was concerned about one thing: legacy. He was concerned that the faith of this generation might not get passed to the next generation and the next generation. And it would be essential that they had faith and a love for God as they entered into the promised land. So Moses shared some choice words with the nation of Israel about legacy and how to pass faith on to the next generation. And the truth that he shared with these people is true for us today as well. So let me read to you Deuteronomy 6, 1-9, the words of Moses. These are the commandments, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God for as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Now here's something interesting. As parents, we tend to prioritize things, right? Sometimes we say things are important, but it's really our actions that prove what's really important. As parents, we prioritize our kids' health. We prioritize their education. We prioritize opportunities like clubs and dance and sports. And these are all good things. But more often than not, we prioritize these things to the harm of our kids' spiritual development. We put those things first. And let me tell you, nowhere in the scripture does God say to train your kids to be well-adjusted, happy, and equally contributing members of society. Nowhere. But time and time and time again, the scriptures teach us how to invest spiritually into our kids. Even Moses, in his words here, he links spirituality to both happiness and success. He links keeping God's laws and decrees to a long life that is enjoyed, an increase in a land flowing of milk and honey. Moses is teaching how to pass the legacy, and he says when you prioritize the spiritual, the rest will follow. Let me move to the next verse, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Now there's something amazing about this passage. Verse 4 says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. This verse actually is called the Shema. It's the most important principle of all of Judaism. It's this idea that God is one. You see, Israel grew up in a context of other nations that worshiped hundreds of gods, and God very early established that there is only one God, and I am he, and most powerful. And so the Jews, they prayed this. They all knew this idea of the Shema. Now the next verse, in verse 5, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Now, we probably remember that. Fast forward a couple thousand years, you find Jesus in the streets of Jerusalem, and the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes, they're trying to trick Jesus, and they called out to him, Teacher, Rabbi, tell us, what is the most important commandment? What does Jesus answer? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. So this is interesting. The most important concept in all of the Old Testament, the Shema, that God is one and that he is the only one. And one of the most important ideas, the great commandment that Jesus gave, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And both of these concepts are side by side, no other place in all of Scripture. This is powerful. And what's the context? Parenting. It's legacy. But here's the thing, moms and dads. If you want to pass a legacy of faith to the next generation, it has to be alive in you. This idea that God is one, the only one, has to be burning alive in you. To love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your strength and all your soul, it has to live in you to pass on to our kids. Let me read this last part of the verse. Verse 6. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. You see, this passage is talking about how we spend our time. Because time is the currency of legacy. We pass these truths on to our kids when we're hanging out in the living room and on the back porch, when we're sharing meals together at dinner time and breakfast time, when we're riding in the car together, the dance practice and soccer practice and school. It takes time, and that's why time matters. Now you may say, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to impress faith on the next generation. Well, we can help you with that. You see, we actually have this app that I'll tell you about where to get it a little bit later. It's called the Parent Cue. And everything that we teach your kids in elementary and preschool is on this app available to you. Videos, conversations, activities, songs, more content than you could ever impress on your child in a given week. All it needs from you is your time. However, here's the problem. When kids are little, we don't pay attention to time. I get it, things are crazy. Between the potty training, the biting, all the different things that are happening, we lose track. And unfortunately, once it's gone, we can't get it back. And it might be too late, and we might wish we had done things differently if we knew it was going to pass so quickly. And this is why it's important to visualize time. When we see how much time we have left, we're more likely to make what time we have now more valuable. Now you may ask, how do you visualize time? Let me give you an example here. You guys know this setup. You got a new child coming home, you set up the room, you get the bed, you get the toys, you paint the room. And maybe here's just an idea. In the corner of the room, out of the way, put a suitcase. Put a suitcase in the room so that every time you walk into that room and you see the suitcase, you understand something significant. That one day your little boy and your little girl is going to pack that bag and leave. Sobering, isn't it? It's depressing too, isn't it? Let me share with you another idea of visualizing time that's a little bit more fun, still depressing and sadistic. But like I said, it's a little more fun. In this jar, I have 936 marbles. These marbles represent the weeks that you have from the time a child is an infant until they graduate from high school. And the way you do this is that each week you pull out a marble and you celebrate what happened that week. How did you invest in the next generation? How did you spend time with your kids? How did you make the most of this week? And I get it, there's gonna be weeks that you miss and you're gonna mess up, but you got a bunch. And each week you celebrate. And for a newborn, you have 936 marbles. For a 4-year-old, you have 729, still a bunch. By the time they hit 10, 416. Oh, we're starting to run low. By the time they get their driver's license, only 104 left. It's an interesting way to visualize your time and make the most. Because here's the idea. When you count your weeks, you're more likely to make your weeks count. Now, maybe you don't like the whole marble idea. It's just something to dust in the house or whatever. Maybe you're more of a tech head. Well, we have it digitally. There's another app that we can share with you as well. And it's called the Legacy Countdown. I'll share information where you get that in a little bit. But I can look at my son. Right now, I have, let's see, it's going to come up here in a second, 555 weeks left, and it's counting right there. It's just a picture there. But it's just counting the seconds down until he graduates. And this is a reminder, this is how I leave a legacy. Now, I still got lots of time, but I know it's going to go fast. It gives me great hope to see that my daughter, I still have 815 weeks for her. So I got more time to leave a legacy for her. So why do this? Why leave a legacy? Why visualize time? Well, in Psalm 90:12, it says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. The very practice of counting your days, or in this case, counting your weeks, it is a step toward wisdom for sure. We need to visualize our time so we can make the most of every opportunity. This jar is Titus's jar. He's my 6-year-old. I've got 555 weeks left. 6 was a great year. He learned to play football. He's been swimming. He's getting better than me at video games. We've been watching Star Wars together, just 10 minutes at a time. It's still pretty intense for him. Seriously. A couple of months ago, we climbed Guadalupe Peak together. I'm so proud of him. That was a hard day. We've been having amazing conversations about faith and spirituality. I believe he's really developing a heart and love for Jesus. And here's the problem. In 2 weeks, he turns 7. And he'll never be 6 again. And I'm a little nervous about next year. He's going to be a first grader. He's going to meet people and have experiences that I'm not going to be there for. And then in a year, he'll be 8. And it keeps going. He'll turn 9 and 10, and he'll have friends that I don't know, and he'll go to the movies, and I won't be invited. And I know an age is coming that he's not going to want to hold my hand anymore, but maybe we'll still have our wrestling matches. And then it comes 11, 12, 13, and I'm nervous about this. He's going to have a girlfriend. I'm totally unprepared for this. I don't know if it's okay. Can I have the conversation with the first girlfriend? Hey, I want to show you my gun collection. Does it work can I do that way? And then he turns 15 and 16, and then he's going to get his driver's license. And he's going to be driving himself all over the place. I'm afraid I'm never going to see that kid. And then 17 and 18. And then it's over. My time runs out. I don't know about you, but when I get to here, I want to have counted every week because every week counts. And I know there's some of you in here that this is where you are now. Or maybe your time is running out. And I want to encourage you that even though your time may have run out, you still have influence. Why? Because you're their mom. Because you're their dad. They won't ever have another mom or dad. You have more influence than you know. But I'm not just talking to parents, and I'm not just talking to those who are influencing their own kid. The job of investing in the next generation is more than just that. We all play a part. Think of your own life and how you got to where you are today. Sure, mom and dad were there, but it was somebody else too, wasn't it? As a coach, a teacher, a family member, maybe a spiritual leader at your church, a camp counselor, and they helped you get to where you are today, right? Yes, one day you might be a parent, but legacy building doesn't start then. You may already be a parent or have been a parent, but it's important that we build a legacy beyond our own family. Here's another idea that I want to throw out to you. With all my heart, I believe that no one is better equipped to raise a child emotionally, physically, relationally, and spiritually than a child's parent. A parent has all the influence. However, I don't think a parent can do it all on their own. Parents need help. It's not because of a parent's inability to be awesome all the time, but the natural way children change as they grow. I have a 2-year-old daughter, Genevieve, and a 6-year-old son, Titus. And right now, I have the status in our home as superhero. Being a father at this age is flattering, it's fulfilling, it's so much fun. And I know I can get on my knees and look at my kids in the eyes, and I can speak to them, and I know that they absorb every word I say. I can look at Titus in the eyes and say, Titus, God loves you. And he knows the number of hairs on your head. Titus, you are beautiful and you are smart and you're going to do amazing things with your life, your character and your personality. You're going to win people. Titus, you are special, not because of what you've done on your own, but because God loves you and your dad loves you too. And you know what? He's going to believe every word I tell him because I'm a superhero, because I'm his dad. But I'm smart enough to know that this isn't going to last. The time is coming when he's going to realize that I'm not as strong as he thought I was, that I'm not as smart as he thought I was. He's going to doubt some of the words that I told him over the years. And he's going to wonder if I got it right. He's not going to think I'm a liar, but he's going to wonder if I missed something about him, about his life, about God. There's going to be other voices speaking in his life, telling him different things. Some of those voices will be internal, and he's going to doubt. Gateway, this is where I need you. Not Kenny Conley, next-gen pastor, trying to recruit 1,000 volunteers for our kids. But Kenny Conley, father to Titus and Genevieve. I need some of you who are going to walk along with my son and my daughter and get to know them, to build trust with them. And you too, get down on your knees and look my children in the eye and say, you are special. God loves you. God's going to do amazing things through your life because it's true. And maybe because of my voice and your voice and your voice and your voice, he'll believe it. And maybe Titus and Genevieve will grow up and live a life believing that that is true. I need your help. Sarah needs your help. My son and my daughter, they need you in their life. And now don't count yourself out. I don't need more biblical scholars in my kids' lives. I need plumbers and electricians and teachers and stay-at-home moms and doctors. My kids need your presence. They need your time. But I'm convinced that together we can do something amazing for my kids. But the same is true of you too, right? Your kids need this as well. When your son loses a big basketball game, he needs another man who's going to walk beside him and say, this loss doesn't define you. When your daughter doesn't get asked out to the dance, she needs another woman to walk beside her and hold her and say, you are beautiful, and boys are stupid jerks. Don't clap too loud. Our kids need additional voices in their lives. It's actually an idea that we have around here called widen the circle. Moms and dads, we need to widen the circle for our kids and invite other voices because a time will come when our kids stop listening to our voices, but they might listen to others. We can't do it on our own. We have to widen the circle. Oh, and this is something that we can help you with. Here at Gateway every Sunday, we try our best to put adults and teenagers in the lives of every kid and student. Another voice. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it is working. I mean, I could tell you stories after stories of how it's happening in Next Gen. I could tell you about Nathaniel Hilpert. He's a recent UT grad who's investing his life as a small group leader in a group of 9th grade guys. Just recently, one of the guys in his group, his mom came to me and told me how grateful she is for Nathaniel because he was struggling with something in secret nobody knew about. And because of the investment that Nathaniel was making in his life, he confessed what he was struggling with to Nathaniel. And Nathaniel encouraged him to share with his mom and dad, and he did, and things got better. And they're so grateful for that other voice in his life. I could tell you about John Sutherland. He's a Bible story teacher and host in elementary. And about 3 years ago, he began investing in a 4th grade boy being raised by a single mom. You know, the hard part about being a single parent is that oftentimes you're the only voice, or there's a conflicting voice. Well, because of John's influence, this boy began to grow, and he actually came to faith and got baptized, and now as a middle school student, he serves every week in our 1-year-olds. You know, life hasn't necessarily gotten easier for him or his mom, but there's another voice there. John calls them every week and asks how they're doing. You see, the success we experience in Next Gen, it's not about our building, about our curriculum, about our programs. No, the secret sauce is in our people. This is R.J. Jackson. He's an orthodontist, but during the week, he's a hero to a small herd of 7th grade guys. This is Brian and Heather Cleary. Brian is a product developer for Cisco System, and Heather stays at home. And they're high school kids who call them mom and dad. This is Wayne Wiedemeyer. I don't even know how long Wayne's been serving. It's longer than I've been here, leading a group of 4-year-olds. But here's what I do know. In the time that Titus was in Mr. Wayne's class, Titus stopped saying, I want to go to church. And he started saying, I want to go see Mr. Wayne. He taught Titus that church isn't a place that you go, but it's a place where you belong and are known. This is Lacey Washman. Lacey is in high school. She started leading a group of first graders when she was in 8th grade. 3 years later, she's 17 and continues to lead the same group of girls who are now 4th graders. These people are playing the same role that Mr. Randy did in my life. They're leaving a legacy in the next generation. They're passing on significance to the next generation, and they're no different than you. This whole idea has been a frequent conversation that Sarah and I have been having for years. How do we widen the circle for Titus? How do we invite more voices? And we've been very intentional about the friends we choose, not just because we're friends with them, but what they'll do for Titus. And you know what? It's been amazing to see godly men and women live this out and show Titus what it looks like to love Jesus. Actually, real quick, let me introduce you to Titus's circle. Watch this.
My name's Chris, and it's a privilege knowing Titus and his entire family. One of the things I love about Titus is his intelligence for his age and the wisdom that he has. He asks a lot of questions, and he's a learner. He loves to learn about Star Wars and Legos and all that kind of stuff, but he really likes to learn about God, and I love it that I can be in his life and he can ask me those kinds of questions, and I can be a teacher in that kind of way.
My name is Kristen Johnson, and I know Titus because I'm a volunteer on Sunday mornings in his kids' quest room, and I babysit for him. And my favorite thing about Titus is his passion. He has a passion for helping people, and he has a passion for learning about the world around him and about Jesus.
My name's Charles, and I work with Titus's dad, Kenny. And we have just the joy of getting to spend time together at the swimming pool, going out camping, doing fun things together. And what I see in Titus is just this amazing young man in the making who has a love for God and a love for the other people in his life. He interacts with my son, and I see the love that they share as friends. And one day, Titus is going to grow into this just amazing leader who's going to impact thousands of other kids, thousands of other adults, because he stays connected with God and the other kids around him, and has an amazing love for life and the people that God brings into his life.
Hi, my name is Renee Kopecky. I volunteer in Kids Quest on Sunday mornings with the 4 and 5-year-olds, and Titus is one of my students. One of my favorite things about Titus is his ability to make new students feel welcome.
My name's Sulinda McManus, and I know Titus because I work with his dad. And one of the great things about Titus is that he has just such a loving, serving heart, and it's always great to see whenever we have activities going on here, how he likes to be a part of that and how he likes to help us as staff members and just friends of his parents and of him.
I'm so proud of my circle in Titus's life. They're made up of friends, co-workers, and volunteers in Kids Quest. And they're speaking life into his life. Moms and dads, don't you want this too? Don't you need this in the lives of your kids? Take advantage of every moment. Count the weeks to make them count. Know that you have more influence, but most importantly, widen the circle in your child's life. It's never too late. Gateway, what do you think? Are you in? This is our family. These are our kids. They need your voice. It doesn't take as much time as you think to leave a legacy, and there's no greater way to pass significance on to the next generation than by investing it in the life of a child or a student. And let me tell you, this works. This works when the church, us, all of us in this room come together and partner with parents and speak the same truth to the next generation. Lives are changed. And by being a part of it, your lives will change as well. This is awesome. When you're part of something like this, you see it week after week after week. And I'm reminded of this impact every time I see a child come to faith or baptized.